Hi, Emily. So today I thought I would start off with something I'm going to be calling Key of C Chord Explorations Guitar Lesson. So you had asked about how to jazzify a pop tune. So I thought rather than talking specifically about a specific song, I would just kind of play through different keys and just kind of go kind of stream of consciousness with some different chord ideas, and I'll just kind of go up the scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and just kind of see what kind of occurs to me of some different chords you can use. So in the key of C, so you have just regular C chord, but then you have C major 7 where you add the open D. So this is just like Dust in the Wind. All right, so there's a lot of different things you can do there just with just a plain old C chords. B, C, D, G. And then you also have these kind of notes in the middle. D, E. Okay, then you also have where you add in the G, C, E. Right, so chord exploration. Okay, so I think what I want to do next is rather than going to the D minor chord, I just want to show you, here's a move that looks really good and sounds good. So if you're going from a C chord to an F chord, that's kind of a nice sound. There's G, C, F, A. So you have a F triad, and then you have that G9, major 7, and then you have that what's called the sharp 11. So when you do the 4 chord in any key, you can add the sharp 11, which is naturally in the key. C major 7. How nice that sounds. Right. So probably in these lessons I'm going to be emphasizing a lot, including open strings, because that is really, since you're playing acoustic guitar, that's a nice sound. All right, so an F chord, it makes it more interesting. Okay, so the next chord is going to be some kind of D minor chord. D minor 7. Okay, then something that I did in a previous video, D minor to E minor, so that's considered Dorian. So if you're in the key of C, you have a D minor chord. You can take that D minor, slide it up 2 frets, or if you think of like Old Man, or how he kind of goes up to that. So that's kind of like a D minor 9. So if you just take that D chord, move it up to here, that becomes a D minor 7 chord. So that's kind of a nice move on the D minor chord. So any of those kind of things where you can just think of the chord not as a static chord, but as something that you can move around. So that's what I'm doing. So D minor, E minor, and then I'm going to that F chord and that G chord, but I'm keeping my fingers on the same strings. Okay, so that's a D minor chord. Let me think if there's anything else. Yes. Yeah, so then this is kind of a nice voicing in here. D, F, D, C, F in the middle, or adding in that open E for the 9. So let's say C major 7 chord. C major 7 chord to the 2 chord. And then E minor chord. E, D, G. So that's going to be the 3 chord, E minor. E minor 7th. Add the E, add the D there. Or you have the chord like a lot of people use, like from Wish You Were Here. B, E, D, G. And that's obviously a good chord if you're going, like I said, to the G chord, E minor, C add 9. So I think we talked about that. Okay, so is there anything else? Oh yeah, then E minor, just all the open strings. So let's say you're on a C chord, A minor, E minor, throwing, and then that's kind of a nice surprise there. So I say C chord, A minor, E minor, and then to maybe G chord. So I go for, okay, that's just kind of another thing to think about on that E minor chord, adding in all the open strings or doing some kind of harmonic there. Okay, so E minor. Okay, then F. I talked a little bit about the F chord. F major 7, or F major 7 like that. And then this is a good device here. I'll kind of tie this together with the G chord. F chord to G chord. This is a sound that you hear Hendrix do a lot. Adding the G and then the D chord. All right, that works almost all the time. You know, so just adding the 9th and the 6th or the 13th, and then G chord. That's kind of the same thing. So G chord, A, F chord, C chord, and the D note. All right, so all those moves are kind of analogous to each other. So F. Okay, I did this one here. Oh yeah, then the F chord. So this is kind of an interesting chord. You can maybe use this in place. Like I say, you say C major 7. And then you can do, you had talked about how you like to put the F sharp in the D chord. That's a really, really cool sounding chord, easy to play. So that'd be kind of like a, you know, we'll call it a jazzy chord or an embellish chord. And F, that's some kind of F, you know, F chord. And then I'll take that, I'm gonna move that up. And that's gonna be your G chord. So that's just another way of playing F to G. And then you can have that same move that I was doing before, adding that A note. Back to C chord. All right, so then you just use your ear to decide what other kind of notes you want to add to those chords. Okay, so then G. Okay, then A minor. A lot of things you can do on the A minor chord. A minor 7th with the open G, A minor 7th like that. I'll just do a little tangent here. So a really good sound to get, a cool sound is to do like an A minor 7th chord, open A. Notice how I'm really emphasizing these open strings. You bar here, A minor 7th. Then on either side of that is a chord built in 4th intervals. That's from the minor pentatonic, E, A, D, G, and then A, D, G, C. So that's going to take you into like what is called a jazzier sound. Maybe you can use that as an intro or as an outro vamp. A minor. G chord. A minor. Okay, and then also this note here, the minor 9. Okay, so I'll go off on another little tangent. So there I'm using kind of these minor pentatonic notes and these chords built in 4th intervals, quartal chords. So then you also have the concept of the minor pentatonic scale, which I think I have that written down in one of my notes for you in our outline. So C, A. Right, so that sound is just, everybody uses that sound, but if you use it for chords and for melodies, so here I'm not using it so much as a lead thing, I'm using it more to embellish my chords. Right, that's a really, really common device that everybody, like a lot of classic rock people use that, like Hendrix. So any kind of minor chord you can do that. So let's say I went to the D minor chord, that's the 2 chord. So you have the bar across, 4 strings. Here I'm going to include the low A since that's the 5th of the chord. A minor. Back to the D minor. A minor. G chord. F chord. Back to C chord. How about the good old sus4? Okay, and so these videos don't get too long. I'll kind of break them up into sections. So after the A minor, so then there's this chord here. This is a good one to know: B minor 7 flat 5, B, D, A, F. This is a chord that's used in a lot of jazz standards. So a common thing you might hear is B minor 7 flat 5, either with or without the E. Then maybe an E7 chord, borrowed from the relative minor, C major. I'm talking about C major, but also A minor, and then to some kind of A minor chord or A minor 7 chord. So B minor 7 flat 5, E7, and then A minor 7. So then at that point, you can do what's called modal interchange. So what you could do here, even though you're not in the key of G, you could bring in this. Right, so you've heard that sound in Eva Cassidy. So she's bringing in those notes from the Dorian mode. But if it's minor, you can exchange, the different modes. B minor 7 flat 5, and then to A minor. So that's not a total look at all the chords, but that's just something to get you started thinking about this. So I think to end off the video, I'm just going to just go kind of improvise a little bit with some of these concepts, not really talk very much, and see what happens. So I'll kind of think of it as kind of a C chord, A minor, D minor, or F, and then G, like a 1-6-2-5 or a 1-6-4-5, and I'll just kind of improvise on that, and that'll be the end of the video. Okay, and I'm gonna put the metronome on. I have a metronome here set at 58. Okay, here it comes, a little improv on some of these chord concepts.